Are you ready to overcome the complexities and burdens that come with your success? Join the team at Centura Wealth Advisory in the Live Life Liberated podcast. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the Live Life Liberated podcast. We've got Sean Clark as the host. And Sean, who do you have as a guest today?
I brought Derek Myron in to talk today, and Derek is our founder, CEO, managing director, and my boss. And we are going to talk a little bit around our liberated wealth process. That's what we do here at Centura when working with clients. We're going to talk about what our planning services are, why this process can produce some exponential results, and how we measure those. So that's really what we're going to be talking about. And who we're talking to is ultra high net worth individuals that utilize our planning services, privately held business owners that use those services, as well as the advisor community that serves them. So that could be legal professionals, tax professionals, financial professionals, et cetera. So anybody in those groups should listen up. We're going to have an exciting story here today, and we're going to talk about what we do and how we do it, and why we think it gets great results for clients. And remember, this is for informational purposes only, so nothing discussed today should be considered advice. And with that, let's get into it. So Derek, welcome.
Welcome, Sean. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So I'd like to talk about the liberated wealth process. When I started here in 2017, we did this, but it didn't exist in a formal capacity, if you will. That came in, I think, in 2018. So tell me a little bit about the process, how you've developed it informally, and then when it formally came about, and kind of its evolution since then.
Yeah, I think as I got into the financial services industry in 1998 and started doing planning right away, I became a certified financial planner. And so as you deal with more and more sophisticated plans, you need to really create a process. So we memorialized that process into this 5-step process that has specific milestones and deliverables along the way. And we think it does a great job of yielding exponential results, as you mentioned.
Cool. So, and I know you just mentioned 5 steps. So those steps are uncover, unlock, design, implementation, and stewardship. I kind of think of them out in 3 phases. Take us through those phases.
So the first is discovery, right? Which is step 1. And then we'll walk through the next 2 phases. But discovery is the very first part. Then you get down to these either project work where we do a bunch of work, and then it turns into maintenance work. So those are kind of the phases that we think of planning: discovery, project, and maintenance.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to get more into that. Before we do that, tell me a little bit around why this process exists. Why do we have this? Why do we do this? And why do we stick to it so religiously?
Well, when you plan anything, a great outcome is usually, it could either be lucky or it could be well-intentioned. And what we're attempting to do is, once we find somebody that really fits our ideal client, we know that this process will deliver fantastic results, and people can see it along the way. It's not like, hey, trust me, I'll see it all the way at the very end. They can see very early in the process, month 2, 3, 4, that, wow, I can see how this is going to yield fantastic results for me and my family.
And it's interesting because we're in a service industry, right? So what does that do from a client's perspective?
What does that do? Can you expand on?
Yeah, so like this process from a client's perspective, when they're going through this process, to me, it really kind of, we've described it as more of a product, right? We're selling a service, but then we kind of productize this service offering, if you will, through this process. Can you take me through our thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of clients who, in buying services, like, gosh, it's nebulous. And I've got this meter running, and what am I going to get for it? And how do I discern value? What's the value proposition to the fees? How does that all work? And so if you can really take your service offering and turn it more into a product that's touched and more that they can feel and evaluate, how do you do that? So we've put it into this 5-step process that comes with milestones and deliverables along the process that we have already set. How do you benchmark each of those things as we go through the process? And so that gives people comfort, especially new people who don't have a relationship with you. It's okay, I understand where it is you're headed.
Yeah, it's not like buying a car where you get that instant gratification, right? It's this process that could take a few months for discovery. Then you go through this project phase and then you ultimately get into maintenance. But at the end of it, if you can look back and say, hey, here's what I've done, here's what I've, put in place, here's the results that I've affected so far and things like that, it becomes much more like a product or something you could speak to, right? All right, cool. So with that, let's get into a little bit around the types of services that we have. So here at Centura, we do specialized planning, I would say. We call it above the line planning. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so I think that that word is ubiquitous. Everybody says, hey, I do planning, and it's difficult to discern the different service offerings under planning. And so we try to differentiate it by saying there's below the line planning, which is what most people do, cash flow planning, goal-based planning, asset location and allocation, and then they stress test it. They stress test all the variables. And so, like, if you're going to drive from San Diego to New York and you draw a straight line, you know the fastest distance is to stay right on that line. I think that below the line planning does a good job of measuring along the way to avoid pitfalls and to get you to jive back and forth across that line, getting you to your destination. We do not think that, even though that can be somewhat valuable, we do not think that those exercises produce exponential results. So the question is, well, what is it that we think produces exponential results? And that's what we've delineated as above the line planning. And we categorize it into three broad categories. Income tax planning, so that's around ordinary income and capital gains. Wealth transfer planning, those are the next three taxes: state gift and gift generation, skip. And then balance sheet optimization. We think the combination of those three things can cut the journey from San Diego to New York maybe in half or more. That can be exponential value to a client's plan.
Fantastic. And I know just from working with you and all of our clients, this isn't for everybody, right? It's not something that anybody and their brother can utilize necessarily. It's facts and circumstance dependent, and there's some demographics that we talked about. So talk to me through who we serve and how we think about our offering in terms of a niche perspective.
Sure, great question. So I think it really gets down to our target market and who's the ideal client that can get exponential results. Because applying this process to everybody, that's just, we only serve a narrow niche of who this will really work well for. And it's three folks. It's founder-led business owners. It's founder-led business owners who expect to dispose of their business in the next X number of years, and minimum 20 million of equity per business owner is where it makes sense. And then C-level executives. Those are the three camps of people. And here's some criteria around it. They must have $2 million of income or more, and they have to have a minimum 20 million in net worth or more. And they must have an immediate problem. So, hey, I have this issue and it's a big issue for me, and I would really like you to solve it. Oftentimes, like sometimes, not oftentimes, but once in a while, we find somebody's like, I have an issue, but I don't know if it's a big, we're going to have a conflict with that person because they want to just gather a lot of information. We want to get engaged and show them solutions. And so that's a conflict. But if they have an immediate problem and they fit those criteria and they're a founder-led business owner or a C-level executive with these criteria, very, very likely we're going to be able to provide exponential results.
Yeah, that's our sweet spot, right? And to take me through for the business owner, we describe it as gold, silver, and bronze in terms of timing related to a business sale. So tell me about that as related to the Liberated Wealth process.
Yeah, great question. So for business owners who are considering sale, we put the time periods before and after sale into three categories. The first category is the gold period, and that's the 24 months prior to execution of letter of intent. All 60 of our planning strategies are available. Once you sign that letter of intent, from that date until December 31st following the transaction date, only about half of our planning strategies are available. And we call that the silver period, not near as valuable as the gold period, but there's still lots of things that can be done. And then January 1st, until you sign those corporate tax returns, whether they be partnership 1065s or S Corps 1120 or 1120S or C Corp 1120, there's just you're on the podium, you're looking up and you're going, gosh darn it. There's just a handful of things I could have done, and I could have kept so much more of those tax dollars with good planning, but we kind of missed the opportunity.
Gotcha. Okay. So just to recap there, founder-led business owners, those founder-led business owners who are also expecting a disposition over 20 million, C-level executives, those groups who have more than 2 million of income, 20 million of net worth, and some immediate tax pain is really where we can add a lot of value, and we can add the most during the gold period for business owners, a little less during the silver and less so during the bronze. Is that fair?
That is fair. And I guess during the bronze, like oftentimes these businesses sell their businesses and they take a 20 or 30 or 40% rollover, especially with what's happened in private equity the last 2 years. And they're going to get a second bite at the apple. So if that is the case, like there's still real opportunity on that second transaction.
Good point.
It's just you missed the opportunity on the first transaction. And so those people that get referred to us and we have a first meeting and they disclose to us what's going on for them, we then at the end of that meeting, we're collecting tax returns and PFS, personal financial statement. And through our process, we can then come back and have a second meeting and say, we don't think there is enough value here. We know other firms that are in our network. We'll talk about it more, but an elite advisor collaboration program that we could refer you to. They have less overhead and can do it for cheaper fees. And we know they're proficient and we should refer that out. If it fits what we're looking to do, then we'll come back and it's the same three things on the agenda every time. Here are our findings after going through all your returns and your balance sheet. Here's what we think the value proposition is for working with us. And here's the fees. This is what we think it is. And if it isn't, and not just our fees, all the fees, if it isn't a 5 to 10x or more in benefit, then it just doesn't make sense. There are so many people that need these services that getting new clients that's the easy part. The hard part is staffing and getting enough people that trained up that really know how to do this stuff well. So we're very choosy on who we take on because we want to make sure that we can provide them exponential returns.
That's great. And I've heard you describe it as an investment also, right? Mm-hmm. Business owners understand that where they deploy capital, if they can get a sufficient return on that capital, it's worthwhile, right? And I think you describe it well to those business owners that, look, if we can get 5, 10, 20x, this is an investment. This isn't a cost to you, right? This is a real benefit and value add for you, your life, family, all that kind of stuff. So anything to add there?
100%. There's hard costs and there's soft costs because they got to spend time with us. But 100%, I would not just say this is an expense. It's an investment to get these results.
Great. Awesome. Okay. And you mentioned the Elite Advisor Collaboration Program. That's, I think, unique. I've been around this industry a long time, and this is not something that people do. Advisors don't work friendly together. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think I know that when I first got into the business that we were told to play our cards close to the vest, right? That some other advisor is going to steal your lunch. And as time went on, I realized, wow, and we have clients that are all over the country. I don't compete with almost anybody that's here in San Diego. Like I never run into other people I know. And this idea of collaboration and sharing is foreign to most financial advisors. And we know sometimes that CPA and legal aren't super collaborative either, but we have created a network of people that are super collaborative, mm-hmm. that are totally willing to share. And that's what we've done in this Elite Advisor Collaboration Program is, hey, here's everything we know, the secret sauce of how we do what we do. And we didn't invent this stuff. We found it from other CPAs and attorneys across the country that are doing great work for these clients that are serving these ultra high net worth families. And here's what we know. And it takes people, it takes a process. It may take products and tools to effectuate what needs to happen. It also takes third-party CPAs and attorneys and valuation people to all work together in a project plan to deliver these results.
Fantastic. And I think that's great, right? Other advisors, I mean, when I was an advisor, not here at Centura, I grew up in other firms, but you have a book of business and you might have a few clients who fit Centura's ideal clients as an example, but your process isn't necessarily built for them, right? That's a good fit for our EACP program potentially to bring us some of those. And then vice versa. You mentioned if we can't add outsized value, maybe because someone doesn't have the immediate pain or something like that, then those referrals can go back the other way to an advisor that's more apt to serve them and their needs currently. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. And if you just think about it, like we only want to take on work that we can provide that exponential value to, because then those people are our marketing engine. Because by month 4, if this prospect has a proclivity to refer, they have gotten an experience that's different than they've gotten elsewhere.
Yeah.
Wow, whether it be bi-monthly or tri-weekly, that we're meeting the same time every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, depending on what the frequency is, the agenda, the meeting notes, the document request. I mean, it is buttoned up and professional, that they're like, that we've truly put the client in the position to be executive decision-making. I have all the information. I know I'm in a fiduciary relationship. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to model it. We're going to share you how we think financially you should think about it, and you're the decision maker. They don't have to get to an end of a year. By month 4, they're like, this is a whole different experience. I can see what the results are going to be, and I'm referring my friends and family to us. That's the highest compliment we can get. Mm-hmm. In addition, so we get referrals exclusively 99% from clients, centers of influence, and then also other financial advisors that are in the program that say, I don't have the skills, the process, the people to handle this. Maybe it's a huge estate, $1 billion estate that they need our help.
Yep.
So
fantastic. Well, let's get into it a little bit. Let's go through the steps. So okay. Let's start out with the first step of the Liberated Wealth process, which is uncover. So we describe this as a discovery phase. I've heard others say an exploratory phase, something like that, right? But take me through what we do in discovery and what our objectives are there.
Yeah, I don't want to bore the audience, but we're going to get the facts, assumptions, and the goals.
Okay.
The end of that period, when we get really close, 90% of getting the facts, the assumptions, the goals, let's say discovery is done, uncover is done.
How long does that take?
On a $20 million estate, it's going to be 3 meetings. On a $500 million estate, maybe 6 to 8 meetings, depending on the complexity and the organization of the client.
Okay. So we get, let's call it 90% of the facts, assumptions, and goals. And now we're ready to kind of move to step 2, which is unlock.
Yep.
Take me through that.
So now we understand the discovery. We're taking our 60 strategies. We're pouring them into a document that has 4 sections. First is identified. What are the solutions? And we've ranked them in priority order. The second section of this document is a work in progress. Then it goes down to completed and then disqualified. We are now ready for the client to make introductions to the professionals that should be on the team and opine on strategy. And we want those introductions to the CPA and the estate planning attorney. Could be others, but let's just make it simple, those 2. And we want the client not to participate. Why? Because we want to show up to the meeting. The client has authorized us to show the CPA 100% of their facts, assumptions, and goals, the list of the solutions that we've identified that we think should be modeled for them. And then we return it to the CPA and say, okay, what other solutions should be considered? And typically, today, the newsflash in this country, CPAs are way overworked today. There's just not enough CPAs, and they have more work than they know what to do with. 99% of the time is, Derek, we don't do consulting, we do tax compliance. So I really can't opine on this. So then the conversation turns to, okay, what's your familiarity and frequency in using these solutions? We write that up, we send it to the client. We do the same thing with the estate planning attorney. At the end of that process, the client is saying, okay, we need to potentially replace or augment certain professionals on the team. And now we're done with step 2. We've gotten 3 things done. Discovery's pretty darn 99 or 90% complete. We've got the list of transactions in priority order, and maybe some of those professionals has put another transaction or 2 in the mix, and we've got the team right. Now we're ready to design, create the blueprint, like we're going to create a blueprint for a house.
Okay. And typically, just to set the structure, so once we get down to this point, we kind of know what the scope of work is, what we could bite off, maybe for this year, next year, et cetera, over some period of time. And we can set kind of a set meeting frequency where we have recurring meetings with those clients and or professionals to be able to affect the results over some dedicated period of time.
Correct.
Okay. And so at this point, now we enter the design phase, which is really executing on that path that we just laid out there. And there's two sides to it, right? There's planning, which typically is where we start getting into things, modeling out solutions, getting into different areas. And then investments typically come up at other points. And so these kind of run parallel tracks. Talk me through how we think about planning and then how investments kind of dovetail into that and how that relates to the design phase.
Yeah, great question. The planning is we want to take that first solution down and say, okay, and it's just us with the client because we're in design mode. So we take that first solution down and we say, okay, this is going to save you, $6 million in tax over the next 5 years. Here's the benefits. Here are the costs to set it up. Here are the costs to maintain this structure. And here are the risks. You have these 3 risks. Well, gosh, me and my wife are fine with the top 2. We hate the third one. Go do it again. So it's a rinse and repeat. Okay, we have that one right. Now let's do the next one. And oftentimes these interrelate to each other. It's driven by the investment and estate planning goals that we got collected in the discovery process. And we're going to go through all 5 or 6 solutions. And you alluded to these project plans could be, they're somewhere between 1 to 3 years, depending on how big and how complex. You didn't get here overnight. We're not going to try to fix it overnight. Year 1, we're saying, okay, hey, we think we can save, $5 million in income taxes over the next 5 years. Let's do phase 1. So we get all 6 solutions the way the client wants them. Now we're ready to bring the other professionals in the room, the CPA, the estate planning attorney, maybe a tax attorney. And we're going to go through the entire thing again. It says, okay, here are the facts, the assumptions, and the goals. Based on all of that, here are the 6 solutions we put in place, and here's why. Now, those other professionals, it's like the HVAC professional or the lighting professional, they're going to tweak stuff. Like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, they made some small tweaks. Great. Then we're going to turn to the CPA and say, can you follow all of this next year? Any issues? Everything's good there. We're ready to put it in play. We're ready to move on to the next step in the process.
And that gives clients immense confidence, right? I've seen it myself. I've heard it from clients, but describe to me how you think they feel at the end of that experience.
That somebody is coordinating all the professionals, that there's a process with a project plan, there's deliverables. We're under promise, over deliver people so that they're like, wow, they're under promise and continue to show up, managing our promises, managing third-party professionals. What they have to do is show up and give decision-making, truly making them in the executive position of making executive decisions.
That's great. And now at this point, they've got the rhythm of working with us. They've got that experience, right? So there's plenty more we could cover there. I think our listeners get the picture. But step 4 of the process is now once we start to make decisions, right? So we presented some of these solutions, we've gotten collaboration, and now kind of pedal to the metal to, what does the client want to do?
Well, I think that also, can I just back up before we leave step 3? Now that the house is built, and the investment people get involved on a parallel track to say, okay, hey, the investments, we understand what each room of the house is supposed to look like. What's the duration? How much liquidity? How much liquidity can we have? What kind of cash flow? What kind of tax? All those things. So we can start designing the investment piece because the planning now dictates the investments.
That's a great point. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that there. I know from working together, a lot of times I come in on the investment side right there, and we take the planning data that serves as inputs for a lot of the investment, and then we optimize that overall structure so that those 2 things are integrated very well, left hand speaking with the right, and just makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So thanks for bringing that up. And so, okay, perfect. Now we've got planning and investments covered, and we presented some solutions to the clients. They can decide what they like, what they don't like, what they want to do. And so step 4, liberate. Take me through that.
Yeah, so now we have additional people that are going to come in to help put this stuff in place and managing that portion of the project plan, whether it be the planning team will still execute on the planning stuff, on the legal stuff and the accounting stuff. The investments people will come in to implement, set up accounts and make transfers and all the money movement stuff that needs to happen. And so that's the liberate of putting it in place. And usually most plans stop there. It's like, okay, but we just did a whole bunch of stuff. And come January next year, February, like, whoa, you guys set up, it could be 3, 5, 7 structures. Like, oh my gosh. We've built a process around this such that we're going to make it easy. We want to give you white glove treatment such that you have, let's say it's 4 new tax organizers. We're going to get those tax organizers. We'll get all the tax organizers for you. We're going to gather all of the working papers. We're going to collate it. We're going to write a cover letter. We're going to scan that stuff to our portal, and we're going to send the link over to the CPA, just the way they want it. People, listening audience may or may not know, 50% of a CPA's time is spent gathering information. When your client, new client or existing client shows up very, very organized, somebody else has had a set of eyes on it, it makes their work far more simple. I shouldn't say simple, far more efficient. And gosh, if they don't have to pick it up and set it down a bunch of times, waiting for information, they are more efficient. They're going to make more money. What we ask for that in return is that our calls get answered first. Our clients' calls get answered first. We want to make them look awesome to the clients. Clients like, wow, I haven't had this level of service from CPAs because they've been overwhelmed for a lot of time, right? The government just keeps throwing more and more programs on. So we think that makes it way more efficient for the client, way more white glove treatment. They then send the tax returns back to us. We do a quick review. We send it to the clients for signature. They get it back to us. And when it comes back to us, we used to have interns scrape all that information and put it into our CRM. We now, for the first year, AI does all of that for us.
It's fantastic. And so with regards to when clients make decisions, so it's definitely not a set it and forget it type thing, right? We're going to hold their hand. We're going to kind of go through it. And I know from implementation, things can get messy. A lot of things can go wrong. So I know our service team really steps in and does a great job here and makes the clients feel whole and complete. And so when we get into, now they've implemented things, they've made some decisions, we've got stuff in place, and we've decided it's not set it and forget it. So we set a recurring kind of schedule. We kind of think of that as the stewardship phase, right? Mm-hmm. It's or stewardship stage, I guess it is. It's in the maintenance phase where we're constantly tweaking and doing things to always make it better and keep up with tax law, et cetera. But take me through this step 5, stewardship. How do we manage that relationship with clients over time, both in planning and investments?
Yeah. So the project work could go multiple years. So the maintenance may be out for a ways, but annually we think it's important to get a report card to say, I did a bunch of stuff. Like, what did I do? And how valuable is it? So this report card is 3 to 4 or 5 pages. And it starts with, what are the benefits? What were the income tax benefits that we think we received? What are the wealth transfer benefits that we think we received? What kind of balance sheet optimization did we make your estate more efficient? Those are the benefits, A plus B plus C.
Okay.
Now, what are the costs? You had a bunch of soft costs. You met with us 16 times. That has a cost to it. What you don't know, it's like an iceberg. That's what you see. What you don't know is what's going on behind the scenes. Every one of those meetings had a case prep. There were 16 of those. We met with your professional team 10 times. So you have X in fees to us, Y in fees to legal, Z in fees to CPAs, double Z fees to valuation, and potentially other professionals.
It's not
that number better be 5 to 10, 20% of the savings or less. Those are the folks that go, there's huge value here in what I'm doing. It's an investment in what I'm doing. And then we collect feedback. Where could we improve? How could we make our service offering improvement to give you greater service? Some people want to give that face-to-face. Some people, we send it to them first via DocuSign and they fill it out and give it back to us. Then the second part is, what do we do well? Upon the conclusion of that, we then say, okay, here's the scope and the project plan for next year, and here's the fee. And if it's project work, maybe it's the same fee. If it's maintenance work, it may go down based on the decisions they make. But that's the project plan that says, okay, I understand what's going on on the planning side. Makes total sense. And we do the same thing on the investment side. And we track all that. It says, okay, here's our planning results. Here's the actual, here's the delta. And if there's insurance involved, fixed or variable private placement, here's that plan, here's the actual, here's the delta. And typically we're under promise, over deliver. People that we're getting positive deltas, it's just a nice way to show up in life, that you're constantly getting good news.
And that's the integrity of the process, right? We've talked about each step. So on the front end, we talked about who we can serve and what types of results we can get for them. We've taken listeners through the experience at a high level that we do. And then we get to the end here, and each year we kind of measure our results and say, did we do what we said we were going to do? And how did you feel about it? What was your feedback? That kind of thing. And so I think it's that completion annually that we do, where clients really feel heard, understood, taken care of. They know how to work with us. They know what that experience is like, where they can use us, where they can't. And I think from my experience, this is incredibly unique, but the results and what I hear from clients at the end of it is consistent. And that's, you guys have it together. It's buttoned up. I feel taken care of. I trust you guys. I know how you guys go about working and things. So thank you for putting this process together. I know it's helped me a lot in working with clients, and a lot of us here, it gives us infrastructure and kind of overview and framework of how to work with clients and deliver great results consistently and repeatably. So let me see here if there's anything else that we should talk about. I think something that's just interesting, you mentioned, we work with CPAs, we work with a lot of the professionals, and by creating this experience, take the CPAs as an example, by making their jobs more efficient and, making our clients serve first in that. One thing that comes back to that is referrals, right? So over time, we get referrals back from those professionals. Maybe there was an advisor who was working with us that had a great experience there, and they give us referrals or clients. So take us through the referral process, and if somebody wants to introduce clients to Centura, how that works and how we take them through, and if there's any difference from a center of influence versus a client, for instance.
Well, they shoot us an email, we shoot an email back, and we have that first meeting where the first half hour they're disclosing to us, these criteria. We're asking questions around that criteria. We're trying to understand the immediate problem. Is it one of the three things we solve? And then we share with them our process and how we might be able to serve, and then we collect documents. So, it's a pretty standard process, but the question, the real issue is about collaboration. We are extremely transparent. Every meeting, there's going to be meeting notes that go out. We're going to be highly organized in the way that we show up. I hear often, like, you guys are the most professional organization I've dealt with. And so if this is you as a financial advisor and that you're listening today and you're interested in diving into tax planning strategies for the ultra high net worth, we are an open book. Our philosophy is that we get better when we collaborate. We believe the willingness to share the secret sauce will inspire others to share their secret sauce, and ultimately creates win-win-win relationships for clients, for collaborating advisors, and for us as well. We believe when advisors collaborate, clients win. I have loved doing this podcast with you today. It isn't my process. This is the firm's process. Together, everybody has made this better and better and better. We constantly continue to improve upon it to how to make it white glove treatment, continuing to up our game. I appreciate all your professionalism and hard work, Sean. I've really enjoyed working with you for the last 7 years. And if this is you in the listening audience as a client or as a professional advisor, please get in touch. We'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Derek. Thank you for the kind words and coming on here today. As you mentioned, we've worked together about 7 years now. I was an advisor at outside firms, and I can tell you what we do and how we do it here at Centura is different. And I would encourage any advisors and other professional CPAs and attorneys who are interested in what we do and how we do it to reach out to us. So you can reach us at centurawealth.com. All of our contact information is there. And if you have interest in these topics, we got lots of other podcasts that you can listen to that dive into things deeper. But Derek, thank you for the time today. Really appreciated this conversation and you telling the story here.
We'll see you next time on the Live Life Liberated podcast.
Nailed it.
Thank you for listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Centura Wealth Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Centura Wealth Advisory. Centura is an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in San Diego, California. Centura and its representatives are in compliance with the current registration and notice filing requirements imposed on SEC registered investment advisors, in which Centura maintains clients. Centura may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Tax relief varies based on client circumstances, and all clients do not achieve the same results.